This will be a great time. So what I want to do first is I'm going to, I think I have this down pat, you guys. I'm going to go share screen, and I'm going to do it this time because I want you to see the slides. I want you to take a picture of them if you need to. They're not complicated. That one's on in the background. And let's see, we go here. Now, I'm going to show you, as many of you guys know, I have a TV spot. Gary Keller says, we should become the expert, the neighborhood or the local economist of choice to our buyers and sellers. And there's a lot of ways to do that. And certainly you could be the real estate commentator on Fox or CNN or something like that, which would be my goal. I'd love to have a national audience like that. However, your audience can be as small as your neighborhood newsletter, where you're actually giving worthwhile information. For example, and we have a great broker in Naples, and every day he sends out a snapshot of what's going on in the market. Kind of in our MLS, there's this little market watch widget, how many homes sold, how many went pending for last 1 day, last 7 days, etc. Now, that's great information. What I'd like you guys to remember as you become or continue to be the neighborhood economist of choice, numbers must mean something. And so I emailed Jeff, our broker, and said, Jeff, this is awesome. However, why don't you put another number there? How does this number compare with the other number? Because numbers already, I mentioned numbers and people start getting glassy-eyed. They're already on their phones playing Candy Crush. So, however, being the local economist of choice doesn't have to mean you have Coke bottle glasses and a slide rule. So I'm going to show you, bear with me, a video. First time I've done video on Zoom. It's 2.5 minutes. Now I do my TV spot on CBS affiliate here. Been doing it now for about 8 years. And so that's one of the ways that I'm branding myself as the neighborhood expert. And here's the thing is that I don't do any selling on that. They wouldn't allow that. Therefore, a lot of the things that the spots that I have would be relevant for you to post or send to your clients. Although they may give my email address in the end, I don't know that that's really relevant. So watch this 2.5 minute gig. And the whole thesis is, my thesis statement is getting sellers back into the market. So here we go. My first attempt at video. Boom.
Existing U.S. home sales fall to the lowest level since 2010, according to the National Association of Realtors. Yet this may be the best time to sell your home here in Southwest Florida.
Now I'm going to pause just for a moment. Now what I'm attempting to do in this spot is to preempt the negative headline, which we talked about on this call several weeks ago when it talked about May's or April's pending home sales were the lowest in 10 years. Therefore, we knew that May's closing sales were going to be low. And that's the headline that's coming out. So just watch. I'm attempting to preempt that so buyers don't think it's going to be a buy one, get one free market.
Well, here to give us the facts is Denny Grimes with Denny Grimes team at Keller Williams Realty. Good morning, Denny.
I won't bug you anymore. Just remember the camera puts 5 or 10 pounds on you. So just keep that in mind.
Denny can hardly hear the audio.
Home sales at a record low. So why is this good news for sellers locally?
Well, that's the great question. However, we've been waiting on this report. We talked about it 2 weeks ago. This report is actually looking in the rearview mirror of May's closings. Now, we knew that was going to be slow because April's pendings were slow. In fact, Southwest Florida didn't escape that either because our sales or closed sales in May were down 40%. However, June sales are through the roof. So that's sellers because buyers have stepped back in. Bullish on the market and a little bit more safe.
Rocky, your pizza's ready though.
Somebody mute them. You mute those guys, please. Thanks. Here we go.
Because many sellers have taken their homes off the market or delayed putting them on the market, which has created an inventory shortage. So sellers may be doing themselves a disservice by not having their property on the market when it could be the very best time for them to be selling.
So you talk about putting it on the market. What else should they be doing to take advantage of this June surge in sales?
Well, number one, if they had plans of selling probably in the next year or so, now is the best time to put it on the market. Secondly, if sellers are on the market and they haven't sold yet, then you should probably get a little bit more competitive on price because buyers are out there. And I did a little research, Lindsay, today, and basically there are about 30% of the sellers that have been on the market at least a a year or more. And you know what? If the market is saying no at their current price, they're not going to say yes later. So sellers should take advantage of this action now. Agents should be talking to their sellers and giving them the advice on this. My last point to sellers is this, is that if you have a contract, keep it together, because as you guys have been reporting for the last couple of days, COVID numbers are going up. I think they're going to slow down the release of phase 3 into Florida. There's travel restrictions, so some of the air may be let out of our market because COVID numbers are going up. Now might be the perfect opportunity to take advantage of the market if you're a seller.
Okay, so the main message I'm getting from you is act now while we can.
Right, because I think the window may be closing.
All right, Denny, thanks so much for joining us.
So do you guys have, is there anything in that piece, and you can have that piece if you want to use it, or you can copy the narrative if you want to send it to one of your clients. I know that we had kind of a stubborn seller, and was like Lisa was talking about, she's got a client that may be a little bit stubborn right now, or unmotivated, may be a better word. And so Tony sent this clip to the sellers. They called him back and reduced it $15,000. And so any comments on that? Do you think something like that information might be helpful to you and your market and your sellers and buyers? Because I can make it available to you. It will be on our Denny Delivers Training website or Facebook page, and I'll just post it there. If you can use it, awesome. If not, no worries. So that is that. Next, I want to talk about, this is something we talked about, I think, last week. We are attempting now to use Facebook to get sellers, what I call shadow sellers, back in contact with them and back in the market. I'm coming up with kind of a program, and I'll have this for us probably maybe next week. Well, we won't be meeting next Thursday, I don't think, and I'll let you know about that. I will be letting you know several points of interest for a seller. And here's one of the things I talked about a little bit on, I think on Tuesday, is the fact that there are many sellers that would like to sell, or let's face it, maybe they really don't like to sell. I don't know that anyone enjoys the selling process. However, they do want to go somewhere. They want to get to a bigger house, smaller house, closer in, further out, closer to family, further from family, right? So there is a reason they want to do it. And it's kind of like, we all like the degree, a college degree. It's the process, the 4 years or 6 years or 8 years. Who wouldn't like to be a doctor, right? However, it's the process they don't want. So I'm coming up with a list of things that you might be able to use with your sellers to ease them in through the process. This is a Facebook ad we're running on specific buyers that we have that don't have a home. There's no inventory out there. So we're attempting to find those shadow sellers. And one way you find shadow sellers is you got to like turn the light up on them. So we're going to be looking for shadow sellers. As I mentioned on Tuesday, I'll let you know how this is working. I know our Facebook ads are driving we're getting a lot of leads, and even in some specific targeted Facebook ads in New York and Michigan. I know we've got people on the phone from Dallas, San Francisco, New York, etc. So if you have a feeder market and they're in kind of a closed down state, we're having great luck with Facebook ads targeting those people. In fact, I even had a real estate agent call me from the New York area, and I did a video for him. He asked me, Denny, will you do a couple-minute video on why someone should choose Southwest Florida? So it was 3 minutes, and I mentioned his name, his contact number. Now he's paying to market that into his area to draw for referral business. So we'll see how that works. Next, I would like to talk to you really quick about what makes me tick and why I believe what I believe. And as we go through this, I don't want it to be a lecture. Feel free to ask questions, push back, challenge, or whatever, because I believe if you build on the right foundation, basically, and even the scripture talks about, build your house upon the rock, right? So I've got these beliefs are bedrock and fundamental. You want to have you want to be bulletproof in your buyer and listing presentation. And so these things I'm going to go through, I think I've got 12 or 13 different axioms that I believe that I think are basically true. In fact, I think we talk about it, the term of axiom. It's a statement or proposition that is regarded as being established, accepted, or self-evidently true. So an axiom, we remember that word from school. you know, we studied physics, etc. There are things that are true all the time. I'll put an asterisk up there on all the time because sometimes there's some weird things that happen. This is not new to you guys. And so take a screenshot here. And this is the foundation of everything I believe, is that the real estate market is efficient. And what that means is, if you're new on the call, is this. Efficiency means the market's controlled by buyers. It's probably not new to you. It's a golden rule. He who has the gold makes the rules. The market, understand, I've got market capitalized and underlined because the market is this thing out there that is a collection of all the different people. The market acts predictably. I know we've got sellers that aren't motivated. We've got buyers that are unrealistic. That's not the market. Those are individuals, right? Agents and sellers, we cannot manipulate the market. We can't change it. We can't affect it. It is controlled by the buyers. And the last one there is the market is giving feedback on every listing. For example, and we'll talk about this here in a little bit, if you've been on any of my calls, you know that I believe that if your home is not sold, you've got a pricing problem. And simply put, and again, that's okay. I mean, as long as you know that if you spend more dollars, it won't cause an overpriced home to sell. So I've learned that lesson the hard way by having open houses every weekend until my kids grew up. Axiom number 2, the future is uncertain. Therefore, any prediction is just a guess. Now, I just want you to chew on that for a moment. And now that sounds so basically common sense, like Will Rogers, like common sense, duh. Then he says something earth-shattering. Well, what do a lot of us do when we sit down with a seller and they're asking us what they can sell their home, or worse yet, what can we sell their home for? That's dangerous language. So, you know that I believe in setting expectations and not setting prices. I just wonder how you guys are doing on that, because the future is uncertain. Therefore, any prediction is just a guess. Therefore, going further, you know, people want to know their number one question. Wow, that was good. I hope you're all right. The number one question on sellers' minds typically is, what can you sell my home for? What's my home going to bring in this market? Or some of you guys do a CMA, and it's basically a clairvoyance experiment. And again, there's nothing wrong with a competitive market analysis as long
You're muted, Denny. You're muted.
I am. Guys, help me here.
I can hear you now.
How about now, Matt?
You're good. You're good. Repeat the last 7 seconds.
The last 7 seconds. Okay. So here, I love analogies, and this is a good one, and you can use these slides. I'll post them on my Facebook page if you have a visual presentation. In Florida, in a certain time of year, and probably anywhere in the country, you get fog. Now, when you look down the road there, you can't see very far. However, for every 10 feet you drive, you see another 10 feet in front of you. That to me reminds me of a listing presentation. We can see kind of like right in front of us. However, we don't know what's really down further the road. And we've learned this. We've learned for a lot of people that hadn't seen much of a market disruption, everyone has seen that January and February, March, April, May were kind of different, right? Because it was those types of outlier events that took place were beyond our vision. So if we can't see the future, we shouldn't predict it. And if you have the ability to predict it, why don't we'll go into business together. I'll buy the lottery tickets. You just give me the numbers and I'll give you 20%. Fair enough? So a wise guy said, here's the thing. A wise guy said, forget pondering the future if you can't explain the present. So one of my canon beliefs is, when you understand the numbers, you understand what's going on now. And also understand, quite honestly, we don't know what the future is. People ask me that all the time. What's going to happen in the future? I don't even know what I'm having for dinner tonight, right? So if you forget pondering the future, if you can't explain the present. Now, just one thing I want to say is, that's actually my quote. I use Einstein just to give it some leverage and credibility, okay? However, it does make sense. Next, axiom number 3. You're going to think, oh boy, Denny, you're really a brainiac. The present is predictable. Well, okay, if the future is not, the present is, let's define the present, because too many agents go into their listing presentation with their market analysis and they then tell them what the home is going to sell for. Now, and many times in a predictable level flat market, that is true. However, we've just lived it where it is not true anymore. So let me ask you this question. If this is a timeline continuum, and you got the present and you got the past and the future, right? So I got it 30, 60, 90 days, 120 days, etc. The average market time generally in most areas of the country, in all price ranges, it'll vary a little bit, but somewhere in the 30-day range, and maybe at one time, you know, I remember it being in the 90-day range on average. I think probably when you throw all of our market in together right now, it's probably a 70-day days on the market. Now, the question I have for you is that in the predictable range or not? Anyone want to take a wild stab? If we can see that foggy road, we're going down that foggy road, can you see 60, 70, 90 days in the future? Let me ask another question. If $10,000 were on the line, how far in the future would you guarantee an outcome? How far could you basically say, well, I'm pretty certain that, you know, we're going to have this window of opportunity and it's going to last X number of days or weeks?
You'd be a fool to predict that.
Yes, and so you would, and I'm glad you guys are picking up on that. However, to the newer agent out there, or to the newer seller or buyer out there, they until this pandemic, they may have expected us to do more of that, because look at this. Where's the zone of predictability? Maybe at best a week, although we've seen things change in a day. Remember 9/11? The bottom line is this. I'm giving you ammunition to think about, to make sure when you're doing your listing presentations or painting a picture for a buyer buying a house, that you understand the zone of predictability is very, very small. All we have to do is paint expectations, not paint the future for them. And I want you to understand that. Be very careful as you start to make comments about what may be happening in the future. Because when you set a price, you've heard me say this before, and basically you have to go and ask for reduction, that becomes a very tough conversation, and they tend not to forget that. So I'm learning the more I'm in real estate, that my ability to see the future is getting shorter and shorter and shorter every year I'm in real estate. Any comments thus far? Axiom number 4. The level of inventory in any market segment will determine what type the market segment is in. So I talk about market segment. Now, again, I'm going to show you the slide from Gary Keller. This is page 9 on shift. Buyer's market, balance market, seller's market, all based on months of inventory. You figure out months of inventory from basically your absorption rate. That will tell you what market it's in. You've seen these slides before. Let me show you here in a second. All market types, buyer, seller, and equilibrium. This is axiom number 5. Coexist in every market. So Matt, where are you? Where are you, Matt?
Omaha.
So Omaha, what's your average sales price there, Matt?
Average sales price right now is about $225.
So anything probably 250 down is probably hotcakes, maybe a little more.
Yeah, I would say that the sweet spot is anything up to about 260, 270.
So as you go up the food chain in price range, do you see that a little more stagnation in the other market, other price ranges?
I don't necessarily see stagnation. What I see is it's just a little bit longer days, just a few more days on market.
Okay.
The stagnation really doesn't happen until you're above about 500,000.
Right. So here's my point. You mentioned a key word. We call it sweet spot here. Every market's got a sweet spot. So watch this, you guys. If you've not seen my slides before, you've seen this. This is the buyer market index, 0 to 6 months. So I think Gary says 5, 6 to 12, and Gary thinks says 10. Anything over 10 is buyer's market. So here's the deal. In 2019, this is segmentation. We'll get to that in a second. We had 4 months of inventory. However, when you look at our market by price range, you see all three types there. You see buyer's market or seller's market down here in the bottom in the green, a couple markets in equilibrium at 300 to 500. And then you're going to get into our upper end, or what we call our luxury product in the upper price ranges, you know, close to $1 million or $1 million over. So that's what I'm saying. So when someone asks you what market we're in, I know I'm kind of splitting hairs, and even Gary Keller says, yeah, we're in a seller's market. And you'll hear me say, typically in the last 10 years, we've been in a seller's market. I'm saying generally, kind of like generally it's hot in Florida in the summertime, right? Generally it rains a lot. However, I want you guys to understand all three markets coexist inside your geography if you segment it properly. And that's very important, because you meet somebody in Target and ask you how the market's doing, the correct answer, it really depends. And so let me ask you this trick question. So when you look at that, where are the shortage of buyers? You've got more inventory in the upper price ranges than the lower price ranges are moving like hotcakes. Where are the shortage of buyers? Don't answer that, because this is a trick question. Even when you look at that 31 months of inventory and $1 million plus, that takes us to our axiom number 6. Very, very important bedrock fundamental. There's never a shortage of buyers in any market, only a shortage of realistic sellers. Now, let me ask you, and somebody come off your mic, and I don't know what the right answer would be. If you had to be on a game show, this was the last question for you to get $1 million, and you couldn't phone a friend, and the question was, in your estimation, how many agents have said to their sellers in the last 2 months that there's just no buyers around and that's why it's not selling? Anyone want to take a wild guess? Would that be, I'll give you multiple choice, more than 100, more than 1,000, or more than 5,000? What would you say?
More than 1,000.
I bet you, yes. I don't know what the right answer is. Have you heard people say this? Have you said it yourself? Have you thought it? Now, here's the thing, you guys. If there's any pushback on this, you can push back. It's okay. Here's my point. You saw, if I just go back a slide, when you look at our $1 million plus market, we had 30 months of inventory last year. It's a little bit better this year. However, they're saying it's a lack of buyers. Well, you know there's not a lack of buyers. There's just a lot of inventory. And the way you solve the problem, and you probably already figured this out, have every one of those sellers, Lisa, have your seller that's over $2 million, drop it to $500,000. So every $1 million plus home is on the market for $500,000. You would see a stampede, wouldn't you? Now, that just proves the buyers are there. So if you know that you can sell the $2 million home, Lisa, for 500, the question is, how high can you raise it where instead of having 500 people who want it, there's only 2? And again, if the seller's not motivated, I get it. However, I'm just going to let you know that is an axiom. There's never a shortage of buyers. There's only a shortage of realistic sellers. That is, I can't emphasize enough how simple that is, yet profound. It just changes the way you look at the market. I don't get beat up by sellers anymore. And so when you base your business on foundational principles, number 7, market segmentation is our differential advantage. Here's the thing, the media does not understand segmentation. The media does not do it. Zillow does not do it. And there's a lot of ways that you can segment. I showed you a graph on price. And basically, I have offices in Lee County or Fort Myers, and I have an office in Naples. And so I can segment geography from Collier County to Lee County. And then even when you look at our county, you've got South Fort Myers and North Fort Myers. Very different. Product type, condo, or you can have a villa, you can have single family homes, villas, communities, you can have waterfront, you have yachting, you can have golf, you can have pickleball communities, you name it. Whatever your specialty is, you can segment it using Gary's months of inventory. Just do your absorption calculation, and you will be the neighborhood expert there. You will be the expert in, because you will be able to know what's going on and where the sweet spot is in that particular area. Does that make sense, you guys? Any comments, you guys? Hey, look, you know, I can take a comment if you have one. I haven't figured out how to get you guys to talk. Maybe I have to give you $1 every time you have a comment.
Well, you know, I never have a problem talking. But I guess my comment is that based on that, you know, the axiom where you say that there are no lack of buyers, there's just a lack of realistic sellers. I would ask the question to the seller if they had a problem, would say that is, if you dropped your price, do you think you would have buyers for it? And they probably would say yes. And I would say, well, then there are buyers. You just have to be in that price point to get the buyers. Is that realistic?
That's what you'd ask the seller. Is that realistic?
Yes.
Yeah, and you tell you what, Lisa, you could say, if you drop to your luxury home, if you drop it enough today, I could even be a buyer. See? So I'll buy it for 25 bucks. Anyway, good comment. I'll go to number next, number 8. It's not profitable working with the outliers. You guys, again, here is something that I think has helped me become more bulletproof, is this concept. Yes, there's this. Yes, the seller can say, looking at the outlier on the right-hand side of the curve where buyers are paying too much for a house. Yes, the seller could say, well, the neighbors down the street have a smaller home and not near as nice as ours, and they sold it for $700,000. And you know this, and you're saying I'm only worth $5. My question to you is this: is it possible that happened? And the answer is yes. Is it possible the first time you pick up a golf club, you can go over to Topgolf and hit the ball, and it'll go right into the center of one of those things where you get all those points, right? Yeah, you could have a hole-in-one on one shot if you wanted to. I mean, if you played enough, you could have a hole-in-one in a hurricane. However, understand it's an outlier. And yes, it's possible that a buyer got that condo on the beach. The buyer says, hey, my friend's buddy's, Dennis' girlfriend's brother's sister-in-law's boyfriend said they got a condo on the beach for $75,000. Is it possible that could have happened? Yes, don't fight it. I mean, don't fight it, you guys, because it is the outlier. However, we can't make any money on the outliers because it's not duplicatable. It's not scalable. So I'm going to stop there a moment and say to you that I have another unofficial axiom that you've heard me say before, and I wish I'd have learned this lesson sooner. And that is, if you're going to make 0 on your commission check when you work with a buyer or seller, the sooner you find out about it, the better. Because many times we spend too much time with people in the outlying end of that bell-shaped curve, and it does nothing but waste our time and suck our energy. And I found that out the hard way. And so basically I'm learning that, 1, you can't make a non-buyer buy. And I used to think I read enough Zig Ziglar and Tommy Hopkins, and I listened to enough 8-track tapes and cassette tapes when I got into real estate, that anyone that got in my car would buy. And you know what? I realized that, if they're not motivated, they're just not going to do it. That is a simple concept, yet very limiting. And the other thing is that this has helped me understand the buyers that I want to work with. In fact, I had a slide at one time, and I'll just share it with you. I modified it just a little bit as far as who I want to work with. Because have you had experiences in the past where you're going to take on a client, and every cell and amoeba in your body is telling you, no, it's not going to work. They don't seem motivated. They're rude or whatever. And you say, well, I'll take them on anyway. And then in the end, you wish you wouldn't have, right? And so I have formed, by taking on, setting up my criteria for a client would be threefold. Number one, and then I'll tell you how I've modified it. This may be a starting point for you. Number one, I want my clients to understand the doctor-patient relationship. Number one, I'm the doctor, they're the patient. And so if they want to be doctor, they don't need me. I've had clients tell me, well, have you done this? Have you put an ad in this paper? Have you done that? Well, our sign's not big enough. As boaters go by, they can't see the sign. Well, the boaters are 4 miles away. How big do you sign want to have? You name it. They keep telling you to do all these things. So that's number one criteria. Doctor-patient relationship. I do not believe that the customer is always right. I just believe that the customer is relevant, and I treat them thus, okay? Number two, they have to understand the concept of market momentum. So when you go back to being a local economist of choice, when you understand the market and they think their house is different, can beat the market, that may be a little bit of a problem. And so I solved that problem with sellers. You've heard me say this before. In fact, you will be my star pupil of the day if you can repeat the most popular three-word quote that I use in a listing presentation all the time. The three magical words, the shortest script, and there's only one more word than the Bible verse, Jesus wept. 3 words. Who knows what it is? Matt, do you know? It starts with other. Jim, do you know?
Other than that.
There you go. Other than that. So that's 2. And number 3 is, here's a big thing. This is really for the buyers too. In order to be successful, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, or Mr. and Mrs. Seller, or I should say that, I might not even be politically correct anymore. Sellers and buyers, here's the thing. In order to be successful, this is a we thing, not a me thing. I'm doing my best to help school my buyers agents to make sure they help the buyers understand our job is not to find the house. So be careful if you have that language in your counseling program or just out of bad habits. Yeah, we'll help you find the house. Most likely, they'll find the house before you do. Drive by it, see it on Zillow, Realtor.com, or hear it from a friend. And if they think that's one of the things you were hired to do and they found the house, they may not feel as loyal. They may even ask for a discount. So those are the 3 criteria that I would use to hire a client or allow a client to hire me, with one exception. I'm breaking all the rules now. And so here's my exception. If they have motivation, I will put up with crap. Because I know sooner or later my thickness of skin will outlast their willingness to be stubborn. And if they have motivation, sooner or later they will get real on what they can afford from a buyer, or what they're going to basically get from a seller standpoint. So if they want to start high and it'd be unrealistic, and they're a little bit ornery at the beginning, and I know they have motivation, I'm more flexible now. Now, it seems like an oxymoron as I verbalize that, because I've never said that way, that the older I get, the more I've been in this business, the more crusty I get as an older person, whatever. You would think that I'd probably get a lot more rigid. I think what's happened is I'm more end game focused. I can put up with some of the thorns and thistles. It just doesn't bother me as much. And so I don't go home crying because somebody was mean to me. So anyway, that's my thoughts on that. You can pipe in if you want to. Number 9, we're almost done. Almost done. Rational or motivated buyers and sellers will progress from unrealistic to realistic if given enough time. That is why I just said what I did. If they have motivation, I know that they will progress from unrealistic to realistic if given enough time. If you're working with someone with no motivation, I don't know, it probably is still true. You just might not measure it in weeks or months, it may be eons before they get realistic. So you'll have to decide if they're going to be worth spending time with, okay? Number 10. This is probably where I get more pushback than any other place. However, it's what I believe, and I'll model it. I'll just talk, and we can talk about it. In a rising market, which means prices are moving up, having the correct initial listing price isn't mandatory. Meaning, you know what? If you start out too high and you're wrong, you can still come down. And I believe, and there's other schools of thought out there, which is fine. I mean, the Bucks are the best football team out there, although there's some people that would disagree with that. I believe that there's no penalty in a rising market for a seller to start out too high, and they're not going to be penalized if they come down. And I can explain that in another series. And if I know that some people say, oh, I know you got to have it right the first time. That's when you get multiple showings, multiple offers, whatever. I just have a different feeling on that. So it's not a hill to die on for me if you don't agree with it. Although I practice my real estate business this way, and I leverage the heck out of this on a listing presentation. So if you want scripts on that, just let me know. We can walk through that. Anyone give me a thumbs up, thumbs down, any comments or whatever on that, because I know there's some people that do not, and I think my wife's one of them. So,
Well,
I generally don't win that argument anyway.
Right. My comment is, and I from experience here in Omaha is that, and I've seen it just depends on days on market for a specific neighborhood. I saw a neighbor right across the street from me who sold his house recently. Started it. They was listed at $295. I looked at a market value about $250. His son, by the way, is an agent, but it was on the market for a long time. They kept dropping it. He finally took it off of his son's listing and did it for sale by owner and got it sold at $250. So at some point, I think they need to, depending on the neighborhood, you're going to need to, if you're going to overprice it, quote unquote, you're going to need to respond quicker based on the days of market.
Okay, I buy that, Matt. No worries. I probably pay less attention to days on the market than any other agent on the planet. And it's kind of
I only use it as an indicator.
Yeah, I always look at it, you know, if I'm going to go meet with a seller and they want me to list it, and this just happened, right? It was on the market for 600 days. And so the agent's not talking or the seller's not listening. So I look at it from that respect. Yes, absolutely. And if I'm working with a buyer and it's been on, here's the thing though, and I'll move on. Here's my comment on days on the market. Let's say it was on the market for 180 days and 295,000, using your example, Matt, and clearly too high. For 180 days, on the day 181, they lower it to 250. Now, there will be a buyer that steps in the market, maybe brand new in the market, and here's my theory, is that they will look at days on the market. Oh, they must be desperate. They're at 250. I'll throw them an offer at 230. The buyer who's been in the market and basically had a couple of houses sold out from under them will recognize the value and will put the emphasis on value and not days on the market. So that's my thesis on that. And I've got a good buddy in Washington, Alexandria, that swears 8 days on the market mean everything. However, it's just my opinion, just the way I work. That's their opinion. I respect it. One day I'm going to get somebody in college to model this for me, and I'll come up with some sort of empirical answer. So number 11, this is another one of those. We're just talking about this, you guys. That's why I put it here. The time activity curve is not as relevant as it used to be. And that's when you get the most action on the listing up front, and then over weeks it stales on the market. I do believe in that. However, because the market's efficient, going to axiom number 1, when you change the price on the internet, it changes, and it sometimes, if it's a significant enough price changes, it goes into another price category where other people that are looking, it goes into their bucket when they wake up in the morning, and now it's basically that you have a new set of eyeballs on it. So I believe that a home will stale on the market. However, the days on the market, in my mind, are kind of starting over every time there's a significant repositioning. And anyway, so my theory, and I think I got 2 more. Oh, there it is right there. This is exactly what I explained to a seller in a listing presentation. That gives me a little bit of a differential advantage, because I tell them the type of buyer I'm going to look for. So indulge me for 60 seconds and I'll tell you how, if you were a seller, I'd have this curve laid out. And so, basically on the right-hand side, the frustration level, when people start on the lower left-hand side of the curve, they're not frustrated. They're actually pretty excited about buying a house. However, in a fast-moving market like we've been in for 10 years, particularly if you're in the sweet spot zone, right? Everyone's looking for a house under $300,000. Is that they come in, they've seen 17 houses on Zillow, and they want to go look at all of them. So in the first 10 minutes, you say, well, the 17, this isn't current. There's only 7. Their frustration level's already up a degree. Then they go out and look at the 7 and think, man, they don't look near as nice as they did online. And this is nothing. Well, we have in Ohio, we can get twice this much, right? And so then they have to change their price range. And you get where I'm going is now they step into the market and they say, "Whoa, this is a new listing. Okay, let's make an offer." Oh no, you don't make an offer. The asking price is just the starting line. And if you didn't write that down, you're not using that. You should, because it's about how you season your buyers. Well, they make an offer and they lose it. Then finally they find, oh, we don't make that mistake again. The next house comes on the market. They make a full price offer. They don't get it. And as time moves on, their frustration level goes up. Now, imagine if you're a seller and I'm going through that and say, this is the buyer I'm looking at. And therefore, and I'll show you the price line, you've seen it before, where we can afford to be a little bit more aggressive in an upward moving market. It's different in a downward moving market. Now, if a seller still wants to do it in a downward moving market, I'm going to say, hey, listen, just as long as you understand your house is worth less every day. So how long are you going to wait before you decide to get, quit losing your equity? So again, I know some people still talk about the time activity curve. I think there's a buyer frustration curve no one talks about. Number 12, the change in inventory will predict the direction that the market segment goes in. So here's the thing, you guys. Notice when you go, if you want to start tracking your inventory, and our MLS is great and it's kind of wacky, I can't ask it how many homes were for sale 12 months ago, 12 weeks ago. You have to actually get a baseline, like stand on a scale, get a baseline weight. If you're on a diet, if you want to lose or gain weight, at least you know where you're starting. And that as the inventory builds up, you know that basically the barometer, like we're in Florida, we have a hurricane coming, the barometer is dropping, there could be a storm coming. So as inventory is increasing, that may be meaning that segment is going from what it is now closer to a buyer's market. So if you want to know where the market's going, if you want to be the smartest tool in the shed, you want to be the expert, start tracking the change in inventory, not just the inventory. And my last one is this. Number 13, there's no such thing as a well-priced listing not selling. That's physically, and I know it could be well-priced and the seller doesn't let people in and there's no sign in the yard, there's no ads. I still think because of word of mouth, it happened. Even today, my daughter calls me on a house, she's getting ready to list and it's not on the market yet. And I know there's all these new crazy rules you can't have coming soon. You got to have it in 24 hours, all this other stuff. Well, they've been working on getting the house fixed up, had people over there decluttering, blah, blah, blah. Well, what do you think the neighbors do? They notice that, right? They're already calling my office, asking her what's going on, what's going on, what's going on. So here's the thing. I think it's physically impossible to have a well-priced listing not selling. So if you have listings out there that aren't selling for the moment, probably it means the market's saying no. Will it change because of when COVID's over or when the election's over or when the Bucks win the Super Bowl? I don't know. I just know that basically it's impossible for a well-priced listing not to sell. There's my pricing chart. So you've seen this before. And again, I'm happy to have all these slides available. I've had my inventory slides on my Denny Grimes Training Facebook page. I can put these slides on there too if you want to use any of them or study them or even call me and role play around them. So that's that. We have time for role plays, Q&A a little bit. I just want to go through kind of the formation of my bedrock beliefs and why I think the way I do. And what comments do you have? And you don't have to agree. You can, anything you want. And Matt, I owe you $3 already. Jim, I owe you maybe 50 cents. You've been pretty quiet. Somebody speak up. What's your ahas on this? I know it's a lot.
Got a question on one of your axioms, Danny.
All right.
You say that you would take an overpriced listing if the seller is motivated. So I have a listing like that right now, and they are motivated. I know they want to move, and they're overpriced by 100 grand right now, and they just don't get it. I show them the 3 outcomes, and there's a neighboring house that just went under contract with 1,000 square feet more than what they have and was priced 50 grand below where they are. And they keep calling us every other day, what's going on? How come we're not getting showings? And whenever I have the pricing conversation with them, they just don't get it. And I don't know what else I can do to give them clarity that they're completely in the wrong ballpark to get the house sold.
All right, David. All right. So can we do a quick role play? Will you be those sellers, please?
Yeah.
Call me. Hello, what's up? Hey, hey, David, what's going on? Haven't talked to you since this morning.
Yeah, 1 second. I'm the seller or the agent, Danny?
You're the seller.
I'm the seller. Well, we're not getting activity. You know, there's people coming through the house, Danny, and we're just not getting offers on the house. So I'm surprised. I don't know why it's not selling.
So let me ask you, David, we went over the sheet, the fishing sheet. Outcome number 1 was low to no showings. Outcome number 2 is showings and no offers. And outcome number 3 is sold. What outcome are we at?
We're at outcome number 2.
Therefore, what's the remedy?
Well, you know, I believe that if somebody wants to give me an offer, they can always give me an offer. Why should we drop the price?
Okay, well, how's that working for you, David?
So far, we're not getting offers.
So here's the thing. You're calling me, asking me why we don't have any offers. I'm telling you why, right?
Right.
The bait is too high. In fact, you mind if I tell you something you're not going to like to hear?
Okay.
Not only are you not selling, your neighbors should add you to their Christmas card list. You know why?
Why?
You're helping them sell.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Anybody else have something? What you guys can pipe in? How would you handle that? And it must be in a question.
I think your prescription, doctor's prescription would be a good question to throw at him.
Run it, Jim.
Okay, David, can I ask you a question?
Yes.
If your doctor were to give you a prescription, would you not want to know before you started taking the prescription any side effects?
Sure, I would want to know. I would. What's the side effects over here?
Okay. On this, no, I'm not your doctor. I am your real estate professional. And what I'm here to tell you is if you want more traffic, you're going to have to put the bait at a tolerable level for the buyers to receive it.
All right, so hang on. You're on the right track. That was a statement. How would that come out as a question?
Oh, again, as we got the 3 outcomes, which one, what are we going to do based on the 3 outcomes? You say we're at number 2. What does number 2 say we should do?
We have to lower the bait.
Thank you.
Okay, no, you have him. He stepped in that, what do you call that little noose where you catch rabbits or whatever? He stepped in the trap. What are you going to say now?
Well, how much would you want me to lower the price?
Well, okay, so let me ask you, David, is it, you know what to do, you just don't feel like doing it?
I would do it, but I wouldn't drop the price by much. You know, I want to get as much money as possible for my house, and I feel if I drop it too much, I might be underpricing it.
So you prefer you prefer the gradual method, correct?
Right.
So where are we now?
Right now we're at 850.
And then what is gradual to you? So we've learned 2 lessons.
I'll drop.
Hang on.
Yeah.
We've learned 2 lessons. The market doesn't exist at 850, and we've eliminated every price they're up. So what's going to be your new price?
Well, can we drop it by 10,000?
It's your house. You can do whatever you want. And I can just tell you when we do that, I can tell you 2 things I know for sure. 1, that's a step in the right direction. And 2, 1 of 3 things will happen. You see, I'm never gonna own that price, you guys. I'm never gonna own it. And here's the thing, you know what? If it's not right, you know what we're gonna do next week, David?
What's that?
We're gonna have this conversation again. Isn't that fun?
Okay, that's fair.
Does it come down to the motivation though? Don't you have to determine what this seller's motivation is? Because if he's just fighting you every dollar down, is he motivated to sell, or is he just going to live in that house if it doesn't sell?
That's a key point. So I don't know who's talking right here. So
James.
How would you handle it? So go ahead and ask them motivation questions, because when you know the motivation, you can add the pain component, right?
Right.
So great point. So I'm glad you brought that up. So David, why do they want to sell?
They don't like the neighborhood anymore. The neighborhood is changing, and they want to move to wherever, I guess, New Jersey or Florida, out of state.
Florida would be better.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this. So I would do this. Really, knowing they want to go, I would then go to the meat thermometer. So let me ask you, David, and based on, you don't like the neighborhood anymore, do you think the market's working in your favor or working against you?
I see it's a major seller's market. It's in my favor. That's why I don't understand why we're not getting any offers.
Well, okay, so I got it. I mean, if you're overpriced, doesn't mean you're going to sell in a seller's market, right?
Right, right.
So here's the thing. You want to wait for the market to come to you, or do you want to get out of the neighborhood?
I want to get it sold. I don't want to wait for a year to sell the house.
Okay. Then here's the thing. Are you going to buy in another neighborhood, right?
Right.
What's going on with those houses you want to go buy? Are they going up or down in value?
If the market is like here, it's probably they're going up as well over there.
So do you want to buy later when you have to pay more money?
No, I want to buy, when it's not too high.
The bottom line is this, you guys. Here, all right. So tell me if maybe I'm old and crotchety when I say this. Okay. Here's my philosophy. If they've hired me to catch fish, so I'm in Florida, right? So, and I have a boat and I take people out fishing. Now they're hiring me as a skipper to go and help them catch fish. However, if they're driving the boat, can they really yell at me because they're not catching fish? And they're not using the bait I suggested either. And you know what? They're playing loud music and throwing firecrackers overboard. Now, can they blame me for not catching fish? So I'm saying to you guys, if you've got sellers that basically want to be the doctor and then they're blaming you because they're sick, you understand the metaphor. They want to be the realtor and then they control the price. And then they want to beat you up for it. What's wrong with that picture? How can you help them understand that? Here, my philosophy is this, David, here's the thing. We are an outcome too. Now, one or two things will happen. Over time, the market may come to you, or maybe COVID to get bad, and we might have another downturn. The bottom line is there's nothing else I can do for you. Are you willing? Are you guys on this call willing to say that to the sellers?
Yeah, I would say to the seller, sounds pretty aggressive, but
is it true?
It is true, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's true. And I guess the real question is, are the sellers asking the agent to control the market? Because my question to them about the price is, that the meat thermometer is at that price point, is the market working in your favor or is it working against you at that price point? Because obviously it's working against them because, like you said, anything at that price and above, they're not knocking on your door.
Well, here's the bottom line is I hope everyone on this call by now, particularly if you're part of our groupies here, understand that basically, if it's not priced right, there's nothing you can do. And the skill to which our income is directly related to the skill in which we can get people from their way of thinking to the market's way of thinking. And that's what we get paid to do. If they have motivation and say, look, hey, we both win at this higher number. However, the market doesn't exist here. So we're going to have to go find it. And by the way, David, is top dollar okay for you? Do you want more than top dollar?
I want whatever the market is willing to produce. I want as much as possible.
There you go. Then let's go find it. So you want to go down 10 or do you want to go down 20?
Let's go down 10.
Awesome. And who will repeat? I gave you a great nugget. And it's almost time to go. I gave you a great nugget. The last time we were at this spot, I said there's two things I know for sure. I trust you got that and wrote it down. What did I say? There's two things I know for sure, David, now that you're going down 10. Number one, the step in the right direction. Number two, one of three things will happen.
Right.
That is a bulletproof position, you guys. You don't own it. Your DNA's and fingerprints not all over that, and you're giving them 100% truth. So I know I went through and you did get to see me a lot today. You saw my slides. Any ahas from today?
Yeah, one more thing, Danny. Could I ask these sellers a rhetorical question? I would ask them, what would you price your home right now at 950? And most likely they will say no. So I'll tell them why not, because it's not in the ballpark. So then I can get back to them and tell them, so how do you know that 850 is in the ballpark? You see that we're not getting any offers right now. So how is 950 different than 850?
Well, then you would say, how would you know 950 isn't right? How would you know 950 was the wrong outcome? I mean, the wrong price. How would you know, David?
Oh, because I don't see any homes that got 950 in this neighborhood over here. It just sounds unreasonable.
Well, here's what you want them to say. Well, no one would come look at it, or no one would buy it.
Right.
Then what's the outcome? You're at 850. What's going on?
So it's the same outcome right now.
So why do you say 850 is right, 950 is wrong? It's the same outcome.
Right.
So that would be a great way to do it. Any ahas real quick, you guys? Oh, I just want to let you know, as you're thinking of something great to say, next Thursday would be the 9th. I'll have my Tuesday class. Oh, I've got an awesome. If you didn't see the celebrity role play we did last week, go to my Facebook page and look at it. It was awesome. And I got another guy coming in next Tuesday. Thursday, I'm not going to have the class because my wife is teaching Success Through Others, which is part of the CD process. That'll be on Zoom. Anybody pick up anything new? Al Baxter, you didn't say a word today. Naughty.
Yeah, I apologize. I came on late, but no, your call the other day was absolutely great. Really enjoyed that. Today you made some good points, and I'm glad to hear you for that session. I'll go back and listen to Tuesdays again.
Yeah, what hole are you on, by the way?
I'm sorry?
I said what hole?
Oh, man. Oh.
I like the three qualifiers you gave for a situation where you wouldn't hire a seller or buyer with the one exception.
Right. Thank you, Matt. Anything else? You guys are awesome. You guys are awesome. You know what I'm going to say in the words of Hill Street Blues? Be careful out there and have a great 4th.
Thank you, Danny. Thanks.
All right,
Thank you, Danny.
Bye.
Thank you, Danny.